that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the famous Tom Fennell.
Hi, guys.
World traveler, philosopher, even. Okay. Every day I get up earlier than I should, and I find news about energy and climate change on the internet, and I assemble a group of articles, a synopsis of about 50 words for each one, with a link to the original article that I found, and I put 10 or 15 of those together in a post at my blog, which is called geoharvey.com, and you can go and see what's going on there. The items that we're going to be talking about in the show today all come from that blog. They start on Thursday, November 10th, which is a week earlier than today. A week ago today. This show is...
A week ago today.
Today. Not the day you're watching it, the day that we record it. So you can, I'll try to mention the date, and you can, if you want to look at the original for the article.
Some of these I have noted are of particular interest.
Some of these things are
good.
Yeah, some of them are really good, and they're nice articles to look at, considering that we've got the political things going on in the United States today. People are upset about Donald Trump being elected, think the world's coming to an end because of climate change is going to go unaddressed and made worse by drilling for more oil and saving coal and all the rest of the things that they're worried about Donald Trump doing. And there's, I think, authors and voices to be heard that are much more relaxed about this and much clearer. Let me put it that way.
Some of the articles we're going to talk about are saying exactly that, that it's not going to have the effect that some people are
afraid of. Yes. And it can't really, because Donald Trump, among other things, is very involved in money. And we've got to a point where there are very, very strong financial reasons for going with renewable power. Wind power, for example, is about half the price on a long-term power purchase agreement as natural gas, and solar has gone a little bit below natural gas.
Well, these things are diminishing in cost
Yep.
virtually daily.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of an interesting thing. If you're in a position where you're contemplating putting up something like solar panels, should you do it now? Or should you wait a year or two? Because it's certainly going to be cheaper.
I don't know the answer to that. I would just go ahead and do it myself.
Well, you'd be saving your money immediately, so that's a decision you'd have to make.
Yeah, but from a financial point of view, it's almost like playing a card game. You don't really know whether they're going to be sufficiently cheaper a year from now. They might not be cheaper at all. We just don't know. But nevertheless.
Is my Ouija board better than yours?
Ouija board? I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting a note here saying my PC is slow. Okay, let's start with the Conversation US. And we have a picture of street flooding. Come on, picture. Oh, come on, picture. Today is a day when things aren't working as well as they should. Okay, here we go. All right, you got a title for this?
This is called Managing Climate Risk in Trump's America.
Yep, the world...
And we'll be coming back to this theme a couple of times.
Oh, a couple of times. The world will forge ahead on reducing emissions without U.S. leadership. The Paris Agreement has already taken effect, while the federal government may not try to meet the U.S. commitment to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. The state's policies and market forces will continue. This picture is a picture of streets flooded by Hurricane Sandy in Lindenhurst, Long Island.
In Long Island, yep.
Yeah.
Interesting takeaway here, and this is the message from this article.
Yep.
China, the UN, together with India and Japan, are responsible for about half of the world's global emissions.
Right.
So for the next 4 years, this quartet may have to carry the burden of global leadership needed to realize Paris's ambitious plan.
Right.
And I think they're stepping up to do exactly that.
They are indeed. They are indeed. Okay, our next item is from Bloomberg, also talks about Donald Trump.
Trump can't stop the energy revolution.
The planet is warming, dangerously so, and burning more coal will make it worse. President-elect Donald Trump thinks man-made climate change is a hoax, and he's promised to revive the U.S. coal industry by cutting regulations. So renewables are dead in the water, right? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
And you know, this hoax thing, it will be in next week's show. It won't be in today's because it came up this morning. So I couldn't, Tom has to get a warning about everything. Like, it's kind of like the town meeting reps getting warnings about.
Yeah.
But basically, in today's news, the Chinese said, hoax? Are you kidding me? The IPCC was formed while Ronald Reagan was president. He was behind it.
Now you know for sure it's a hoax. Little quick takeaway here, and it's the bottom line. Trump can tell producers which power generation technologies to buy. That decision will come down to cost in the end.
Yeah.
Right now, coal's losing that battle, renewables are gaining, and he can't change energy economics.
He can't do it. And you know, if he tries to help the oil industry in any way, including reducing the regulations that are out there on fracking and things like that, that's going to reduce the price of oil, which is going to put more pressure on coal.
We'll be talking about that later on.
There isn't any way. Yeah, there isn't any way he can save this.
There's not much he can do because he's doomed if he does A, he's doomed if he does B.
Well, the fossil fuel industry is in terrible trouble. Well, terrible? I don't know about terrible.
And it's not because of renewables.
Well, it's because of a bunch of different things.
Yeah,
but renewables are part of it.
Part of the equation. But.
Yeah. Okay. Energy Business Review, still on Thursday, November 10th.
Germany's KIT develops chemical reactor to convert gases into renewable fuels. This is an interesting article.
This is fascinating. This is utterly fascinating.
By the way, if you want to know what KIT stands for,
you'll hear in a second.
I'll give you a clue. It's something like MIT, but it's different.
It's what I'm about to say. Germany's Karlsruhe Institute of Technology has developed a microstructured chemical reactor, providing a technology that is key for the planet, key for a plant planned in Finland to produce renewable fuels from solar power. The reactor can produce gasoline, diesel, and kerosene from regenerative hydrogen and CO2. And this is an interesting technology, but it's not the only one like it.
Well, it's a combination of older technologies that haven't been used together in this particular manner before.
Right.
And on the one hand, you got solar panels, and what's coming out is gasoline.
Yes, and the sources are CO2 that shouldn't.
That they're pulling out of the air.
They're pulling out of the air, and hydrogen, which is coming out of the water, the other the side the byproduct of that is oxygen, and I mean
that's a greenhouse gas, isn't it?
I don't think so. It's not safe to have too much oxygen in the environment you're in, especially when you're inside and there's too much oxygen there. Light a match and poof, everything goes up in flames. No, oxygen is what animals need oxygen to breathe. It's about 20% of the atmosphere. You could release quite a lot of it without really affecting things. But the U.S. Navy has been doing this for years. They figured out...
They are a huge user of fuel.
They are. And what they figured out was that if you had 200 megawatts of nuclear power that you could kind of play games with...
Like what's on a typical aircraft
carrier? Yeah, aircraft carrier usually has about 550 megawatts, and they don't use it all unless they're in a combat situation. But if you have 200 megawatts of power, you can get 82,000 gallons of aviation fuel a day, where the source is seawater, the carbon dioxide in the seawater, and the water itself. And
Well, bringing that fuel to the carrier using a tanker is very expensive.
$8 a gallon.
That's very expensive.
It cost them $6 a gallon in 2009 to do the work. Most of that $6 a gallon was paying down the cost of the nuclear reactor.
Oh yeah.
So if you put what they figured out was that if you put this on land, you could get aviation fuel, according to a later document that they put out, for about $1 a gallon. And I tried finding the source on that. I couldn't do it. It was a figure that came up in a Navy slideshow, and it wasn't sourced. They didn't give the source of the information. But I was able, from another source, to get the breakdown in the costs for the $6 a gallon in 2009 for aviation fuel. And what I found was that $4.32 of that, $4.32 was a pay down for the cost of the nuclear reactor. Okay. So the $1 a gallon cost using overnight wind power, where the cost of the power can actually go negative, you're talking, it's believable that it could have hit $1 a gallon. Now, if aviation fuel, and this is a finished fuel, costs $1 a gallon or $1.68 a gallon, we're talking about a situation where getting oil from shale deposits just doesn't make economic sense, because you're extracting oil that costs $2 a gallon just to get out of the ground.
Yeah.
And so I'm figuring the oil industry is in real trouble. But that's two initiatives. This one in Finland, they're talking about getting this from the air. And that's impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, we're up to...
Another picture coming up.
We have a picture coming up. We're up to Friday, November 11th. And there is a picture of a bunch of boats. And this comes from the Sydney Morning Herald, which is obviously in Sydney, Australia.
And it says that climate change is now affecting all levels of life.
Right. And the example here, fish being caught for our tables are shrinking in size, according to a survey of studies published in the journal Science. There has been a 23% decrease in commercial catches because of smaller body size caused by rising ocean temperatures. You know, Donald Trump, hoax? Yeah, right. This is particularly concerning because the fish provide 17% of our protein.
Well, this is a double whammy. They're getting fewer fish to begin with.
So they have to look harder.
And the fish are smaller.
Yeah. It's a double whammy, yeah. And this is a huge source of protein. Well, the UN has been saying we should be eating, for animal protein, we should be going to insects.
To what?
Insects. Crickets,
well, actually,
grasshoppers, grub worms.
I mean, it sounds disgusting, but it probably makes a lot of sense.
I knew a guy who went to Thailand, and I asked him about the pad thai. Yeah. He said, well, you know, some places it's good, some places it's not so good, but there's one dish that's always great anywhere you go, and that is fried crickets.
Which I've never tried.
I would try them.
I would too. I just didn't have the opportunity.
I wouldn't
order a bowl full of them.
Well,
but if you ordered some, I'd try it.
Okay. I read going into that about a famous actress who had a bunch of children that she had adopted. It might have been Angelina Jolie, but this was a famous actress who had a bunch of children, and one of those children came from Thailand or someplace in Southeast Asia, and she wanted all of her children to kind of have an association with their ethnicity.
Yeah.
So she decided that this child came from Southeast Asia in a place where they ate crickets, and she had an opportunity to get crickets for the kid, so she did. And the next thing she knew, she had a whole passel of kids after her for more crickets.
I've been told they're good.
My cat likes them.
Yeah, your cat likes them, huh?
I shouldn't say my cat. He's not my cat.
You share a cat.
No. He's not my cat.
Yeah.
I'm his person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to CNN. This is still November 11th.
Okay.
You can go to the upper left corner of the screen at geoharvey.com and click on a date.
We've talked about this one before, and this is a really good article.
Yes.
Because there's nice pictures of the kids in their biographies.
And you don't have no picture here today. But we have had pictures of these kids on before.
Well, kids are taking the feds and possibly Trump to court over climate change.
A federal judge denied the federal government's motion to dismiss the climate kids case, meaning their lawsuit over climate change will go to trial in federal court in Oregon, likely next year. The plaintiffs, ages 9 to 20, allege the federal government is doing far too little to keep dangerous global warming in check.
Well, the kids are claiming legally that they want to ensure they have a right to a livable atmosphere.
Yeah.
Duh.
Duh.
The
Yeah.
basic idea is that politicians have failed to fix the climate crisis, so the courts need to force them to do so.
Right. And they were actually taking Obama to court. And now, of course, we're changing presidents, so they're just switching their target to be Donald Trump instead, which I think is much more fair. I mean, Obama wasn't denying climate change. Okay.
So it's an interesting article. If you got some time, it's fun reading.
It is fun, and it could have far-reaching effects. But, you know, I have a feeling that Donald Trump might be brought around to the proactive side of working on climate change before this case is actually decided. It remains to be seen what's going to happen.
It's a possibility.
You never can tell. One thing about Donald Trump is that he is changeable.
We're getting ahead of ourselves on that picture, but it'll come up.
Which pictures? Oh, the coal. Yeah.
Okay, we can talk.
We can talk with the coal train in the background. Okay, our next one is from CNN.
Renewable energy to hit 9% of U.S. total in 2017.
Yep, sorry.
It's funny because I just read something, I think yesterday, that we're going to hit 28% by 2021.
Well,
What's
you
happening, guys?
get different numbers from different people. By the way, this did not come from CNN. The previous one did. This is from Green Car Reports. In 2017, non-hydro renewable energy generating capacity should account for 9% of the country's electric generation total, according to the US DOE's most recent short-term energy outlook. That's up from 8% this year, the agency says. Solar power is expected to account for the most of the anticipated growth.
Very interesting. The combination of renewable energy and natural gas are doing it.
Yeah.
It's not either one of them alone. It's a double whammy to the coal industry.
It's to the
oil industry.
And the oil industry. Did we have in this week's news the thing about the oil industry not going after exploration and development?
Yes, we will be talking about that a little later on.
I couldn't remember if that was yesterday or today. Okay, we're up to Saturday, November 12th, and we have a coal train.
Yeah, let's get the coal train up.
Everybody want to see a coal train? That train is endless. It just goes back into the distance.
You know, back about 5 years ago, I took a train across the country, or several trains.
Yeah.
And in the area of North Dakota, it's all straight runs.
Yes.
And it was on Amtrak. It was a regular Amtrak train.
Yeah.
And I was staggered because at several occasions, they shunted us off to a siding to allow a coal train to go by.
Yeah, yeah.
It used to be that the passenger trains, who had a strict schedule to meet,
Right.
had priority.
Yep.
Now the coal trains
have priority.
And coal train is not a musician.
Right. My Uncle Charlie used to work on trains in that area. He worked on the silk trains. And silk trains.
Silk train.
Bringing silk from the West Coast to New York City.
With unit trains?
With
unit trains.
Unit.
Like coal trains.
Every car was silk.
Yeah, it's a
all
train.
They were running was silk.
I never heard of that
They
one.
would bring a ship in, the ship would unload, they'd get it on the silk train, they'd run as fast as they could. He worked on the silk trains, checking the bearings to make sure they didn't get hot. And he was about 14 years old at the time. He'd run away from home and lied about his age.
These trains, by the way, are miles long.
Yeah.
They go on forever and ever.
We used to count cars. When I was out in the Midwest, lived in the Midwest, we'd count cars going by.
We used to count the engines.
Well, I'll tell you,
You might see 5 engines pulling these
I
things.
did see one train that had 86 engines.
86 engines.
That's
You're
right.
going to have to tell me that one.
It had 2 engines pulling, 84 engines. They were all coming out of the rail yards in Chicago. They were all steam powered.
All steam trains.
All steam
okay.
trains. They
So
were
they're going to China to be dismantled.
going someplace to be dismantled. My
Yeah.
bet is they were going to
India.
Duluth or something. Not China in those days. That was about 1953.
No, that
54.
would have been done locally, yep.
Yeah. Okay, we are at, we've come to an article from Clean Technica about ExxonMobil.
Yeah, stabbed in the back.
Stabbed in the back.
ExxonMobil throws shade at U.S. coal industry.
Yeah, they're, as they say, throwing the coal industry under the bus.
certainly are.
ExxonMobil, has dropped, ExxonMobil just dropped a tweet in support of putting the Paris Climate Agreement into force. Connect the dots, and it may seem that the Trump administration may be poised to throw coal under the bus. The company has clearly been positioning itself to be able to continue extracting fossil fuels in a changing world.
Well, this is what he actually tweeted, the quote. ExxonMobil supports the work of the Paris signatories, acknowledges the ambitious goals of this agreement, and believes the company has a constructive role to play in developing solutions.
Yeah.
That sounds like an about face to me.
ExxonMobil has been doing the strangest things.
Well,
You know,
according to this, they're taking a soup to nuts approach.
Yeah.
They're buying up shale gas reserves like candy. And they're investigating, and this one I hadn't heard before, gas to plastics facilities.
well, gas to plastics makes a lot of
It
sense.
does, oh yeah.
Yeah,
We've
but they're
talked
going to
about
have
that.
to do it in some way that doesn't leak gas all over the place, because
That would be helpful.
yeah, it would be.
That would be helpful.
And you can do gas to plastics in other areas too. For example, you can use biogas for that if you want. And gas to plastics means you're taking, instead of starting with oil and going to plastics, which that's what they usually do.
They're starting with
They would
methane.
start with methane.
Yeah, and
So-
you can make almost anything you want to out of methane.
Yeah, just
At least
about.
any kind of plastic or
Yeah,
fuel.
just about.
Anything organic.
Yep, just about. I was surprised, during the gas crisis in 1973, I was working in a chemical plant, and we made pharmaceutical chemicals there. And we would buy glacial acetic acid. It's called glacial because it's really thick, and but we'd buy glacial acetic acid. And when the gas crisis started, we were finding it very difficult to get acetic acid. And I had always thought this stuff was coming from fermentation byproducts, but it wasn't. It was coming from oil.
No kidding.
Yeah. And this is
Oh.
pharmaceutical grade glacial acetic acid. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got an item from Renews here.
BEIS. You're going to find out who that is.
Yep.
Lauds reliable, in quotes, renewables.
Fears that the UK power system would not be able to cope with intermittent technologies such as wind and solar have been overblown, according to the Secretary of the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That's BEIS.
So that's the UK.
Yeah. Speaking at the annual Energy UK conference, he said, quote, doubters have been proved wrong, end quote. I will point out, doubters have been proved wrong. This is not doubters will be proved wrong. It's doubters have been.
Have been, yeah. Past tense.
And we've seen this over and over and over again. Every energy source has got its advantages and disadvantages. When you look at an energy source and you're starting to talk about intermittent technology and variable technology, it's really time to think about what ideal is. And the ideal technology would be one that is inexpensive, but you can turn it up, you can turn it down, you can get what you want.
Flip a switch and what you want
Absolutely.
to happen, happens.
And if it isn't that, then it's a better match or a worse match for grid demand. And among the technologies that are really terrible matches for grid demand are nuclear, coal, and natural gas.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And the reason for that is really simple. It's because when a nuclear plant, for example, turns on, it takes days to get it up to temperature. This is like a tea kettle that has a billion gallons of water in it, a gazillion. I don't know how many gallons it is. But it takes a long time. You turn it on, it takes a long time, and
Turn to make tea.
you cannot turn it down at night. So if you're going to meet maximum demand during the daytime, you're going to have more than anybody can use at night. So what do you do with that?
Well, if you can store it.
You use
Great.
it to drive turbines to pump water up a hill.
Yeah.
And then the next day, when the demand goes past what the nuclear plant can produce,
You let that water
you
go
let
back
the
down
water
hill.
back down the hill.
Yeah.
Which is why, as the Vermont Yankee nuclear plant was being built, there was the Northfield Mountain Station built at exactly the same time, just 20 miles down the river. And the Northfield, the Vermont Yankee plant had a capacity of 540 megawatts, and Northfield Mountain had a capacity of exactly double that, 1,080.
When they built Rowe, they also put in a pump storage plant right next
Yeah.
to it.
And Vermont Yankee's gone, but the plant in the Northfield Mountain plant is still there. And if you drive by, it looks like a park, because it is a park.
It is a park, yeah.
And
Well, what's going on here basically is, this is the kind of stuff that engineers deal with regularly.
yes,
It's just a different kind of stuff than they've had to deal
Yes.
with before.
Yeah.
But this is what they do.
but the thing is, it's really easy for a detractor to say, look, there's a solar panel. That thing isn't going to work at night. Look, there's a wind turbine. It's not going to work when the wind isn't blowing. Therefore, the whole industry is no good.
Yeah.
And of course, if they tell you, well, we have, somebody tells you we have too much electricity at night, you say, so what? What does that mean? Turn it down. You can't turn it down, unfortunately.
But you can store it.
You
and
can
the
store it.
storage technologies are changing almost daily. And
Yes,
getting
they
better.
are indeed. Some of the stuff, like that thing that we were talking about earlier, making gasoline or oil out of carbon dioxide in the air.
If you can do it at night when the fuel is cheap.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
should we move on?
I think we can.
Okay. This is from the Harvard Business Review.
The Fortune 500 can't go along with a rollback on climate policy.
Yeah, we have a picture on this
Yeah,
one.
we got a picture here.
Nearly every firm in the Fortune 500 has acknowledged the reality of climate change, with very few oil-producing exceptions. Along with thousands of smaller companies, most of the business world sees climate change as a tremendous threat. They need to make that perspective heard. That picture is flooding of I don't know if that's a television crew.
Yeah, it is.
It's a television crew?
Some
Film
kind of
crew.
film
It's
crew.
film crew. Okay, at Miami Beach, and this was you were talking about this before the show started. The water coming up through the sewer system
On sunny days.
on a sunny day.
flooding.
Sunny day flooding, it's called.
That's what this is.
Yeah,
Wow.
and you know it's like cars parked on the side of the road, and all of a sudden the water comes up out of the sewers, because the tide is extraordinarily high, because things have changed and
Well,
the water is deeper.
I found out when my car got flooded here in the Elm Street
Oh
lot
my gosh.
that my insurance wouldn't cover it.
Your insurance didn't cover it. Good. You
So, there's a bunch of cars here that are, in the words of my immortal mechanic, toast.
Yeah, and that is salt water, by the way. That is even if
Not
the
that it's going to make much of a difference.
well, you know, if you get into the point where the salt water has crept up to the underpan of the car, and it hasn't really affected the engine, and it hasn't really got into, vital parts, it still gets into the exhaust system. It still gets all over the bottom of the
gonna do
car.
good things for the car,
And
no matter what.
a year later, this thing is going to be rusted out on the bottom because of the salt.
Yeah.
Unless you have it
Unless
very
you get it
carefully
washed.
cleaned.
There's a takeaway from here.
Yeah.
From the article, there are 3 things that businesses can do. One is continue to insist that climate change is real.
Yes.
And a real threat to our economic system.
It is.
That will become self-evident, I think.
Yeah.
Second one is continue demonstrating that the case for reducing energy use is very strong.
Yes.
The highest rate of return.
Yes.
Saving energy.
Yes.
And the third one is say publicly that regulations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions are in our own economic interest.
Right.
It kind of sounds almost counterproductive, but they're absolutely true.
Well, Green Mountain Power is helping people go off the grid if they want help going off the grid.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, I'm your customer, but I want to stop being your customer. Will you help?
Yeah. That almost doesn't make sense, but it does. If you realize what's going on, it does make sense.
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
Like say what's going on, it'll take another half hour.
We are up to
Another picture here.
an item from an organization called Web India 123.
In case you don't recognize that picture, well, it says what it is.
King Canute.
He told the tide to stop coming.
That's
and
what
they
he did.
listened to him.
Okay, so you got
Trump
a title?
won't stop global climate action. He might accidentally help.
Yeah.
Interesting article.
Amid concerns over the threat, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who has earlier vowed to cancel last year's Paris Climate Agreement, the COP22 president, Salahuddin Mezouar, I'm getting it wrong, I apologize to Salahuddin Mezouar, said that one country walking out of the deal will not mean anything. The Paris Agreement is already in force and the rest of the world is moving on.
Do I have the same one?
This is from Clean Technica.
Oh,
I'm sorry, are we at Marrakesh or are we
we're on Canute.
We're on Canute. Okay, Canute. Trump won't stop global
Now we
climate
got it.
change action might accidentally help. Donald Trump disputed the existence of anthropogenic climate change. However, a Trump presidency isn't the disaster one might think for climate action globally or in the United States. In fact, he might actually reduce U.S. emissions, however unintentionally. And
Well, this was a very good in-depth article.
Yes.
It's a long article, too long for us to talk about here, but it just covers it.
it covers
Covers it very, very well.
The picture, by the way, is King Canute, who got wind of the idea that some of his courtiers thought he had supernatural powers. So he said, take the throne down to the ocean. I'll command the tide to stop coming in, and you'll see what happens. And so they did, and he did, and it didn't stop anything.
He got his feet wet.
He got his feet wet. It shows it right there. I think that picture is actually as close to a photograph as you could get. Okay.
There's an interesting takeaway here.
Yeah.
We don't have a climate change realist in Trump, but the societal tide is rising. Good metaphor.
Yeah.
And Trump really doesn't have much he can do about it.
He can't, there's not really much that he can do to stop climate change from
Not at all.
showing its head.
Whether he believes it or not. There's little obvious value for him in playing King Canute and shouting loudly at the tide to tell it to stop coming.
Yeah, I guess.
Good metaphor.
Yeah, it is. But I have a feeling that, you know, something will happen that will change his mind. Like, we'll have a January hurricane hitting at the inauguration or something, so I'll have to put it off. You never can tell. We had a hurricane last January. Didn't hit the U.S., but there was an Atlantic hurricane last
An
January.
Atlantic hurricane
In
that
January.
must be a first.
I don't know that it is, but there have been a
It's
number
very
of.
rare.
It's very rare. There have been a number of firsts in recent years, and one of them is a South Atlantic hurricane. There had never been South Atlantic hurricanes before. That has happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, it was some time ago. It was 15 years ago or more. I don't know, but since that time, there have been other suspected South Atlantic hurricanes. Okay, now we're up to the one that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And this is Web India 123.
Let's take a look at Morocco.
At Morocco, yes, Morocco. There it is. There's a picture
That's a nice
of
picture.
Morocco. Yes, that's a minaret. With it looks like a weather station on the top.
There's something up there. Yeah.
Well, okay. So what do you got for a title, Tom?
One country exiting Paris deal will not mean anything.
Okay, and I already read this. Basically, what's happening is that the Paris Agreement is in force. The rest of the world is moving on, and one organization, the United States, even if it is the United States moving out of the agreement, is not going to stop action on climate change. And in fact, it might actually have the action come about faster, because it motivates China to take leadership in the absence of the United States leadership.
Which I think they've been dying to do for years.
They've actually started doing it.
Yeah.
You know, they are moving on this and just saying, don't worry about it. If the United States is going to be a bunch of rascals, we'll help you.
Takeaway from here is there is absolutely no threat to COP22.
Yeah.
You just have to keep trust and confidence. It's going to move
Yeah,
on.
and our next item on here is actually more of the same. It's from the
Just
nation.
about what we were talking about.
Yep, it's from the nation.
I'll put you
So
up again.
do you have a title on this one?
Yeah, China vows to implement the Paris Agreement on climate change. This follows right along with what
It
we
sure
just said.
does. China will continue to be an active player in the climate change, and its policies will be unaffected by external changes, according to a Chinese negotiator at the 22nd Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, also known as COP22. He remarked on the issue at the sidelines of the conference in Marrakesh. The Chinese are just having the most fun, I think, out of this, because they know that they can take credit for all kinds of, you know, I mean, they've already got a bigger economy than the United States. They've got more billionaires than there are in the United States.
Yeah.
They're challenging the United States in a whole bunch of ways, militarily, economically, industrially, and now they can challenge the United States morally. They can say, we're better than you are.
It's an interesting stuff.
Oh, man.
Well, there's a quick takeaway here. No matter what happens in the new U.S. government, China will continue to constructively participate in the international climate change progress.
Yep,
Global efforts to curb climate change will not stop.
will not stop. We are up to Monday, November 14th, and here is an item which is
we got a picture
fascinating, coming from Emirates 24/7.
You got a nice picture here.
There's a picture.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let me get it up.
Okay. This is from Emirates 24/7. The people there are really interested in this.
Oil demand growth. This is scary.
Well, it's scary to them.
It's scary across the board. Oil demand growth could fall below 1% by 2018.
This is just
Nobody
day
predicted
after
it.
tomorrow.
Nobody predicted.
Impact-
Well, they might have, but they were keeping it to themselves.
Yeah, impact. Well, I think they did actually, based on things that that business that we got from a retired oil minister from Saudi Arabia, who said the reason why they're pumping so much oil is because they want to get rid of it while they
That's
can.
true. Yeah, right.
All right, impact investment firm Vermont Asset Management said that regardless of whether oil prices rise around the potential OPEC production capping news, there is no long-term future for the hydrocarbon sector. Oh my gosh, no future for the entire sector. Solar power is now available at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. That's not a joke. That is real. It has happened, which is equivalent to oil
That's the Emirates.
in the Emirates.
They just come in at 2.9, right?
2.99, and but it got, that record got beat in Chile
Yeah.
a couple of months later at 2.91 cents per kilowatt hour, which is equivalent to oil at $5 a barrel.
$5. It hasn't been $5 a barrel since I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, demand for oil is slowing down. Guess why?
I think it's 45 a barrel right now.
And
It's low.
I had thought it was upwards of 50, but
Well, it may have happened overnight.
no, not overnight. I thought it was.
Last time
but,
I checked, it was in the 40s.
But
It
it's
was within the
it's
last few days.
hanging around
Yeah.
in the vicinity of $50, $45, somewhere around there. Tom says 45, I say 50.
Well,
we'll
we're
see
not
who's
gonna
right.
argue.
We'll check after.
What this article is basically saying, continued investment in oil makes sense only if you can get it for less than $5 a barrel. And you can't.
You can't, and you never. I don't think you ever will again. I just don't see this
Well,
happening.
In the early days of Saudi Arabia, when all you had to do was stick a straw down into the desert
Yeah.
and suck on it and you got oil, it was $5 a barrel.
Yeah, it
But
was.
them days is gone forever.
Yeah, they sure are. Okay, we are up to an article from Clean Technica.
Rooftop solar plus the Tesla Powerwall 2 are already cost competitive with the grid. And in this particular case, it's Australia. But if it isn't here already, it's coming.
Yeah, last month Tesla launched its Powerwall 2 residential battery storage system a little less than a year after Powerwall 1.0. Peak power has increased by 40%, that's a big jump. Continuous power by 50%, that's a big jump. Storage capacity by 100%. It is now up to 14 kilowatt hours, and an inverter is included in the price. All this is for about the same price as the Powerwall 1.0, which is $5,500.
So it brings back my point about is now the right time to buy one of these things or wait a year?
Well, you know, you're not. If you put in your purchase on order on one of these things, I doubt that you'd get it before a year goes by.
No, you won't, because they don't have the capacity to make the batteries.
Not yet.
Not fast enough.
But you know, Elon Musk said this was going to happen when he announced the first set of batteries.
Well,
So
the
this
price
shouldn't
per
be.
kilowatt hour, stored and reused, has been cut in half.
It's been cut in half.
That's
And when you
in less than a year.
when you put in on top of that the cost per kilowatt hour from solar panels or wind, we're getting to a point where the grid is being busted. It's being absolutely busted. Solar and wind are both cost competitive with just about
We've
anything
seen
else.
Very little in battery technology thus far, and we've seen a lot.
There's
There's been more progress in batteries
This is
in the last 10 years
it's an
than
interesting.
it was in the previous 100.
Yeah, this is an interesting statement. We have seen very little in battery technology, but we have seen a lot.
Yeah,
And it's true.
it's absolutely true.
We're not in the end game to getting to the most efficient battery technology, but we've got battery technology that is so much better than it was 5 years
I'm going to
ago.
make a prediction. You're
Okay.
familiar with this company called LG.
Yes.
They make only cell phones. They're Korean.
Yeah.
Okay, they're a good company.
Yeah.
Make good cell phones.
Yeah.
They have been pioneering battery technology for use with their cell phones.
Yes.
They have just announced that they're going to start making storage batteries.
Yes.
And these guys know what they're doing.
Right. They do. But how many different ways to store power have we got? I mean, we've got these.
Let me count the ways.
Yeah, let me count the ways. I'm sorry, I will not, because I don't believe you can do it. Because by the time you get to the 9,872nd, which is at the end of the list, there's new ones on the
New ones
beginning.
coming around, right.
You know,
Absolutely.
we've got lithium-ion batteries of many different kinds. We've got these Tesla batteries, the LG batteries. We've got flow batteries. We've got new kinds of.
Barely touched the surface on
We've
solar.
we've got spinning wheels that
Yeah,
store.
there's one of them.
We got pumped
There's
storage.
one of them running right now where New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts come together.
Right,
over
right.
By Bennington.
Yeah, and we've got pumped storage. We've got the business that we were just talking about a few minutes ago of taking electric power and using it to make gasoline. I mean, we're in a different world than we were 10 years ago.
Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's a lot of very bright people running around working on innovations.
That's
and
right.
Some of them are going to hit it right.
That's right. Okay, Clean Technica. Deutsche Bank.
Deutsche Bank sees Australia at 95% renewables by 2025. 95% by 2025.
This is
Wow.
South Australia, not the entire, not
South
all.
Australia,
Yeah.
which is a state.
It's a state that's about as big as, I think,
It's a
bigger,
pretty big one.
bigger than Alaska.
Probably is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it
the
is.
central part of Australia.
It's big.
In the south.
Yeah. Energy analysts at Deutsche Bank predict the state of South Australia will easily beat its target of 50% renewables by 2025, reaching the 85% mark by 2020, and possibly as much as 95% by 2025. South Australia has already reached around 40% of its electricity from wind power and another 6% from solar. And
This is about 10 years before they were supposed to.
yeah, yeah, and you know they had that outage. Was it South Australia where they had that electric outage, or was it
between
Queensland?
South Australia and what's the?
Victoria
No, the country, the state on the west.
on the Western Australia.
I don't even know anymore.
It's Western
West
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
They had a terrible power outage where the entire state went without electricity for hours and hours and hours, and the federal government, which is profoundly anti-renewable and pro-coal, said, "See, we told you so. We told you it wouldn't work. This is because you've got wind power." It turns out the wind power was functioning just fine.
Well, we saw the pictures of
Yeah,
it. They had a storm that blew down a whole bunch of towers.
23 pylons were knocked down
Yeah.
by 7 tornadoes and winds at 160 miles an hour. These
That's
things
pretty
were not
fast.
designed for that. All right, should we go on?
I'll just say one of the big things that's happening is they've got 2 very large wind farms coming on board in the next
Yes.
year.
Okay, Minneapolis Star Tribune has got this
Yeah,
next one for
there's
us.
a
There we go.
picture here. Let's see if I can get this picture. This is a pretty picture.
This is St. Olaf's College in Northfield, Minnesota, where it was, what was that gang? It was, the bank robbers in the 19th century.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Was it Billy the Kid? No, it wasn't Billy the Kid. It was those guys who had been, they were bank robbers in Arkansas, and they went to Northfield, Minnesota, and knocked over the bank.
Oh.
Okay, you were saying.
St. Olaf embraces wind power 100%.
Dozens of buildings on the campus at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota, are now being powered entirely by wind energy, the liberal arts school and Excel Energy announced. By choosing Excel's wind source program for its electrical service, St. Olaf has become the largest wind source customer in the state.
And those windmills are in Minnesota.
Those ones are in Minnesota.
And I don't know if they're part of this program or not, but
Yeah,
well, Minnesota's got a lot of wind potential.
it does. We got to move on. We're getting pressed by the end of the hour.
Trump plan to boost oil and coal could send prices lower.
Don't you love
This
it?
is continuing on what we talked about already.
Yep, Channel News Asia. President-elect Trump has pledged to boost oil and gas sector and bring back coal, reversing President Obama's efforts to encourage renewable energy and cut dependence on fossil fuels. But analysts say Trump's policies could serve to worsen the global energy glut, reducing prices and doing little to save big coal.
Well, that's what he's talking about. The low prices are going to tend to create an oversupply, which is going to bring the prices lower.
Yeah,
It's a vicious circle.
it's a vicious circle. Okay, should we move on?
I think so.
Okay, Construction Equipment Guide brought us this next item.
Oh, we're getting back home.
Yeah, for a change.
Yeah.
We've been all over the world.
$80 million Vermont wind project underway.
In Vermont, the $80 million Searburg wind project is now underway. The project will have 15 wind turbines, which will produce enough energy to power about 14,000 average Vermont households. It is expected to deliver at least $400,000 a year in local economic benefits and $300,000 per year for the state of Vermont. And I should mention, Searburg has a population of 90.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people live over that.
No, and I actually called up and I said, can I talk with your town manager? I
They
think
don't
this
have
is a
one.
man who has many hats. But I asked him about wind power and the effect
Yeah.
on the community, and he said, well, he said, we use half of the income to push the taxes down, and we use the other half of the income in a fund in case we need to buy any kind of
That's from
infrastructure.
the existing wind farm.
That's existing.
Yeah.
Now, what they're going to do with this new one, because the larger part of this wind farm is still in Searburg, although some of it is.
It's about almost half and half.
Yeah,
It's in Searsburg and it's in Reedsboro.
yeah, which is also
8
a
of them going to be in Searsburg, 7 going to be in Reedsboro. Reedsboro is also sparsely populated.
sparsely
They don't
populated.
have any industry.
Now
This is going to come in.
they do now.
They're getting a huge monthly check every month.
Yeah,
From these things.
Yeah.
It's going to totally change.
Yeah.
These guys, they'll be getting paid.
I don't think anybody's complaining about this.
Well, they are, but there's always complainers.
Well, yeah.
Was a
There are
lady
people who.
went down- there was one of our legislators went down there to complain, and
Really?
she's from St. Albans.
How
You
bright.
couldn't be any further away from Searsburg than you are in St. Albans and still be in
And
Vermont.
did the people in Searsburg support this complaining person?
No. There's a few that do, but very few. No.
Yeah.
Hey, look, they're looking at virtually no property taxes for the next 20 years.
I don't know what this is going to do. The people in Searburg, it didn't cut their property tax that much, because they still have property taxes going to the state. But
Well, that's the existing farm,
yeah,
but this one's going to be bigger.
okay. Anyway, we're up to Wednesday, November
We're
16th,
getting there.
and this is from Nikkei Asian Review.
Let's get this picture up.
Yeah, that's an interesting picture. This is smoke and fumes from the earth. What
No,
kind of
that's
smoke?
steam.
I'm kidding everybody by saying it's smoke and fumes. It is steam.
Japan sees opportunity in the Earth's percolating heat.
Japanese companies are developing a plant that, when it is completed, will be the world's largest single geothermal power station. Altogether, the 3 facilities at the Sarula plant will be able to generate 320 megawatts of electricity. That's half the size of Vermont Yankee. The number 1 unit is already generating power ahead of its official launch at the end of the year. And I think that actually is the number 1 unit there.
That is a working unit now.
It is certainly a
And
working
it's
unit.
not in Japan, it's in Indonesia.
Oh, that's in Indonesia.
But the
Okay.
Japanese are
When-
developing the technology.
That's right.
And they've got whole new markets, because they know how to do it. They've done it in Japan.
Yep. So there you go. And all you got to do is drill down inside the earth and send down water and have it come up to the surface, and figure
Well,
the best way to make sure that it...
If you drill down far enough anywhere in the earth, you're going to get.
That's right. And the
But,
trick to it is, in a place like much of Vermont, you would have to drill for miles and miles and miles.
Although there are some hot spots in Vermont.
There are some hot spots, I'm told, by you. Okay, should
Well,
we...
there is a small community near Grafton
Yeah.
where one developer built about a dozen homes, and they're all heated geothermally.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we'll go on.
BBC.
Holland. That's spelled Holland.
Okay.
U.S. must respect climate commitments.
French President Hollande has said that the United States must respect their commitments made under the COP21 agreement in Paris. Speaking at the climate talks in Marrakesh, Mr. Hollande said the pact was irreversible, quote, in law and in fact, end quote. The President Hollande said France will defend the deal in talks with a new U.S. leader.
Well, the takeaway from this was, instead of working on the nuts and bolts on how to make this pact work like they're supposed to be doing, we're all sitting here talking about Trump.
Yes, well, that kind of thing does happen. I think they can be excused for that, although we don't have much time to be sitting around talking.
They're claiming, and I believe this too, the pledge to pull out of Paris, delegates believe, was campaign rhetoric.
It's hard to imagine that it was anything else. I don't know how much Donald Trump knows about the ins and outs of how you would go about doing that, but certainly the president of France says that it can't be done. President Obama says it can't be done. He said,
and the Chinese say, doesn't matter, we can do it without him.
yeah, absolutely. If the United States isn't going to lead in this, China is going to be the world leader. So what advantage have we got? I know the advantage. If we say there's climate change and we start acting on climate change, we are playing into the hands of socialists who want to take over the world.
Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows it, but where are those socialists? Because there's more billionaires in China than there are in the United States. So it's hard to imagine that China is socialist.
Well, you've heard these people called the New World Order.
Yeah.
They're not socialists.
I think the socialists.
TTB
I think the socialists live in Kansas.
in Kansas.
Yes,
Okay.
and their last name is Trump. I'm sorry, Koch.
Oh, the Kochs.
The
Oh,
Kochs.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think that family learned something about socialism. All they did was just change the number of names, so that instead of saying this is the people's car, you know, before you get in your car and drive it away, they say this is a free market.
Same car.
Same car. I have a friend whose wife was born in Leningrad shortly after the Second World War. Her mother lived through the siege of Leningrad.
Yeah. Wow.
And she had an uncle who had worked at the Kremlin in the motor pool, and she told me that she visited Moscow at a time when she was in high school. She came back to Leningrad and told her uncle that she had gone to Leningrad, and she had seen Lenin's bedroom in the Kremlin, which is very sparse.
I don't think he ever used it.
He might not have, but there was this bed that had a very simple wooden frame, and I don't know, the mattress was stuffed with straw or something, and there was a calendar on the wall, and there was a wooden desk with a wooden chair, and nothing else, And she described this to her uncle, and her uncle said, I don't know what his bedroom was like, but he did have 5 Rolls Royces.
Very influential.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. And our last item is CNN.
The Dakota Access Pipeline companies seek a court ruling to finish construction.
Why are they seeking a court ruling to finish construction? Well, I'll tell you.
They're in deep doo-doo.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers delayed construction for the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline to hold further, quote, discussion and analysis, end quote, with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, which has strongly opposed the project. Protests have gone on for months over the oil pipeline, which could go 1,172 miles from North Dakota to Illinois. Now, this thing is 1,172 miles long, and I don't know what the diameter of that pipe is, but it's not small.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
I don't remember. It's a big pipeline.
It's a big
huge
pipeline.
Really.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this is there is anti-pipeline activism popping up all over America.
Yes.
All over.
And
a lot of it's local.
Yep.
There's already been protests in Brattleboro.
Yes.
Today, this afternoon, there's a big protest in Northfield and another one in Montague.
Yes. And they're protesting for reasons which I think make very good sense, because these pipelines are dangerous.
No.
Go to Wikipedia and find the list of pipeline accidents in the United States, and it just goes on and on and on. Now that list, I don't remember whether that list includes water pipelines or not. And a bursting water main can do a lot of damage. But
it's not going to poison the land for 100 years.
No, not the way an oil pipeline would. And these
oil pipelines are bringing the worst possible oil.
Yeah. And
it's dirty.
Yeah.
And it's carbonated.
Yes, carbonated with methane. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe is not upset because they're crossing reservation land, because they aren't crossing reservation land from what I can understand. But they are crossing the river, which I think is the Missouri River. Is that right?
I think so. It's either Missouri or tributary.
Upriver from the reservation, which means that if there's a break near the river, the reservation loses its water supply. And
worse than that. It may lose its water supply, but it's going to suffer a lot of damage.
It's going to suffer a lot. Well, honestly, American Indians are suffering damage everywhere that there's exploration, as far as I can see.
Absolutely.
And it's very much a matter of nobody really cares all that much. But I mean, who has ever cared about American Indians during the course of the history of the United States?
Well, you got a point there.
Honestly, I think probably Theodore Roosevelt was as caring as anybody.
You got to read the book of people's history of the United States.
I actually got into that. I was disappointed by the fact that it didn't go as further than it did. But
what's the name of the guy that wrote it?
I'm thinking Harvey Wasserman, but it wasn't. It was, I don't remember. But how many people going to school in the United States who have been through school in this country realize that there was once a coup in the state of Rhode Island?
I didn't know that. I lived in Rhode Island. I never knew that.
There was a coup in Rhode Island. People were upset because in order to vote, you had to own land. Okay. You couldn't vote if you didn't own land.
That was true all over America when it first started.
But in the 1840s, it was only true in Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, got to say goodnight, or good day, or whatever it is. We hope you'll come back next time. Bye-bye.
Gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.